Hi guys, and welcome to my weathering tutorial. This is applicable for nearly every model. I use my Ultramarines Dreadnought here as an example. So let's dive directly into it. As you can see here on the shoulder part of the Dreadnought, I try to have a good transition, but it looks very well artificial with the decal on the side, and also too clean for my understanding, but I don't love these ultra grimdark style. So I want to try to get to a balanced approach here, especially here on the metal parts and the cables, the pipes, the metal joints and everything. Of course, you can go for non-oil or similar Games Workshop products, but I think that enamels and oils are giving a much better product at the end. So what I want to do is, or where I want to start, I have these scratches here, especially the majority of these are already highlighted with the highlighting color, which is a very bright blue. I think I used Fenrisian gray for that purpose. And I want to start to show you what I use. So this is Winter Streaking Grime, one of my favorite blue model washes. Then we have some Engine Grime, which is more sticky, more oily. And we theoretically can also use Green Stuff World Rust as an example, and I use a black and brown color for stippling. I don't go for black directly, I always want to have a very dark brown tone. Shipping medium is also an alternative. I will do a different video about that, and I use the MIG oil brushes, which I really love, honestly, because they come with the brush, and so you don't have to do that. You can just stick this in, you can stipple it on your models and just screw the head on top, and that's it. So really good product, very useful for our purposes. There are other neat things, especially I found these recently from Green Stuff World. These are these disposable weathering brushes. You can use them on more than one occasion, and they are quite hard, and you can use this as an alternative to sponge stippling. Yeah, a few brushes, cotton swabs, and synthetic brushes, which is important. You don't want to mess up your good brushes, so go for synthetic ones. This is White Spirit. White Spirit is a very expensive product in comparison. You get for the same price, you get this whole White Spirit in a Baumarkt, in a do-yourself store. It costs a fraction of this little one, so I just refill that, and honestly, trust me, you can use it. Don't go for these overpriced little bottles of White Spirit. So let's get started. The first step, or the first thing I want to do is not going directly with the enamels. I will use a sponge, and I will try to create the impression of scratches, especially on the parts where you could imagine, especially the feet, the lower part of the shin bone, the hands, of course, everything where you have abrasion, where the paint might chip off. Think about a little bit. You can also be like ricochets of bullets or impacts, but that's something I would recommend. Just think it through. So what I do, I just rip off a little part of a standard household sponge. I use some pincers to hold it, but of course you can use it with your hand. And then I will start to dip it into some color and just stipple it gently on the model. And this is really good, and the important thing is, here's some brownish grayish color. If you carefully stipple, you see it creates a random and very nice random effect of You can even scratch with that. And from my experience, from my understanding, it looks very realistic. Sometimes even better if you do this accurately with a paintbrush. So don't do it too repetitive. You see, it's then keeping the same pattern. Just move it around a little bit when you do this. And don't overload the sponge with too much color. It will just like smear the whole model. So just a little bit of color, and then you can stipple that. And the trick is to create the optical illusion. When you paint something, you can of course later refine that with a brush. You can do this via stippling, but it takes a lot of time. So if you want to go for a more random and messy approach, go for the sponge. If you want to really have control about everything, use a paintbrush. Or, like I show you here, the Green Stuff World. I think it's, as I mentioned, quite stable, sturdy, but it works in a similar way. Honestly, I think it's a great marketing thing that you have something you can use directly. It is absolutely not necessary, as you can cut a sponge in the desired pieces. It gives you the same effect. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit more heavy from the scratch marks, from the weathering, but honestly, yeah, give it a try, but it's absolutely not necessary. I think it's it's a nice marketing thing where you can spend your money on. As you can see, same result, nothing special. But of course, adds a little convenient factor. You can just dispose it. You have these little sticks. So, and yeah, just try this like I do on a piece of paper or something else. Always test the things you do the first time before putting this on your actual model. So we start with step one is the highlight color sponging. I use my highlight color, which is not the highest one, but the middle one. So it's Kalga blue here. I have the highest level is Fenrisian gray, Fenrisian blue. I'm sorry, I can't really recall that. So I use not the highest one, the highest highlight color. I use the one before, because I want to have a more duller effect on the model. It is looking more realistic when you keep your really last highlight color just for the official highlights like buttons and everything. You don't have to use your wet palette or something. You can just put this here on a piece of paper and then start to prepare your sponge and dip it carefully in. Just get rid of the color a little bit, and then I start to really carefully stipple the edges of certain parts. I do this random, and I keep it to where I think are parts where I think that the color is really the color is coming off. In the later part of this video, I will fast forward a few parts, so you don't have to watch me doing this for over an hour. But here, especially at the beginning and in other parts, I will not fast forward, so you can really take a look and see what I'm actually doing. So also here on the hands and fingers, of course, if you're gripping and this Dreadnought is gripping steel and metal, of course the color comes off from the ceramide, adamantium. Lower part, imagine it walks through debris and walls, of course, and honestly go as hard as you can. So what I think the Ultramarines are a little bit more clean. Being the poster boys of Games Workshop, I don't want to overdo it, but of course if I even would go for my Imperial Fists or of course Chaos, of course, then I would do a really heavy one. I will do some Death Guard, some Heresy Death Guard soon, or Heresy colors inspired Death Guard, and I will do I think like over 60% of the model will be just weathered. So so take your time, you do this in different areas, and after that I will use now black and brown color to go over the prepared parts where I use the Kalga blue. And this is important to get the understanding of the optical illusion. You want to have, you have to imagine that different layers of color of the varnish varnish is damaged. So you have like this really brown and maybe going down to a metal part, and then you have a little bit of scratch marks, which are a brighter color of the original base color, and then you go back to the full color. So this creates an optical illusion of that something hit it, striked it, and you have deep scratches and more shallow scratches. And I think this is important to understand and to learn. So I go over nearly the majority of areas where I have used the blue color again. And keep in mind, this is all acrylic color, and the advantage is here, if I use the acrylic color, I can later use enamels and oil color and use the white spirit, and I will not remove my initial scratches. So you see, use both methods. Of course, you could theoretically paint this with oil color, but then you have to varnish it and to let it dry thoroughly to mimic that effect. So I combine acrylics and oil colors. So I start to do this. This is fast forward now for you, and just like doing this all over the model, and finding my areas where I want to have a more heavy and a more light damaged color. It's always good to do this also on the decals, so to immerse them more into the models. This is, I think, also an important step. So highlighting the cracks and the damaged parts. What I do now is when the sun or the light is coming straight down from top. Of course, if you have damaged parts and if you have scratches, they usually go into the surface of the model. And what I do is I go on the lower parts of these scratches, and I carefully, with the highlight color, I will carefully surround these scratches a little bit to create the impression of light reflecting from the edge of the scratch. I hope that's clear to understand. It just helps the eye to see, oh yes, there is actually a layer, a huge, thick layer of paint or varnish on the model. It's damaged, it creates a recess, and I want to highlight that. And you can be very careful, just on the lower part, as you can see here. I'm just trying to do a very thin line. Other idea is if you just like paint a brown line and then highlight it, or you can do it the other way around. You can just like paint a brush stroke which with a highlight color, and then use a darker color and leave a little bit of the brighter color standing on the lower part. So this is there are just like different ways of doing this. You don't have to do this with every part, but it's definitely worth the effort, and I can really just recommend it. Take your time, do this. It brings so much to your model. It's just amazing. Just do it. Here, lower part, shoulder edge. just a little thing, a little bit on the lower part, goes a long way. As you can see, it immediately creates the effect of, oh yeah, there's really a deep gouge in it, there's some damage in there. No? So let's fast forward. This process alone took approximately 20 minutes for that model. So just like forward it a little bit. And coming to the next part. After that, some people do this, some don't. I usually do it to protect the model. I will use some varnish to spray the whole model before I use oil color in enamels. I use some Vallejo satin varnish. I do not believe in what people sometimes tell me, yeah, use gloss varnish only, you cannot use matte varnish. Gloss varnish is the way to go, it flows better and everything. I haven't really realized the big difference between these types of varnish if you use oil. People are doing this for panel lining. So here I just airbrush the standard satin varnish or matte varnish on the model, because later at the very end I will do another layer of varnish to really keep everything safe. And I will also now spray, and I did that, I will spray the first winter streaking grime on the model, especially the lower parts. And with the white spirit, I now start to carefully pull down the animal color from the model. It leaves the surface of these metal parts clean. And it flows through the recesses. In the recesses you have already color, so it will just like flow down, and if you do this in the way that it comes from top, it gives a very natural looking impression. So I just draw this in a straight line here for that specific model to the lower part, so the varnish will protect the color below. So just imagine that a lot of grime is on the model, and if you draw this down, it gives the impression that rain, for example, is washing down the dirt and everything, and it will accumulate at the lower parts, at the recesses. And this is like, people are talking or using words like fader or filter for that method, and it is a filter. Yeah. So if companies, I think MIG are doing this, are selling you a lot of like filter for that. This gives color variation. It makes the model more interesting. If you have a little color over your base color, and especially weathering, it's nothing different. You just put something on the model, and it should look later like the dirt and the grime. It's just locating on certain lower parts of the model and in the recesses. Because it's translucent, it is looking more realistic. If you just imagine this using just a diluted color, it could work, but enamels are so easy to use, and this white spirit stuff, you can just like you can bring your filter where you want to have it. With acrylics, they dry, boom, done. And here you can use like cotton swabs to even take away parts of the oil color and the animal color, if you want to bring back the original highlight and the original intensity of the color. So it's a very, very, very user-friendly method, which I absolutely enjoy. It's really this part of the painting process is one I enjoy most. It is the final touch to the model. You can just like play with that. You don't have to worry about, oh, I made a mistake, let's do the whole section again. So here, for example, the exhaust part, there's a little bit more heavy engine grime, and when you see, I just carefully draw this a little bit down. It should look like little streaks on the model. Oily streaks, which are coming out of these exhaust parts. and as you can see, it creates a very, very natural look. Yeah, I hope you can share my excitement here, because it is so easy to use, and it makes, I can promise, it will make your model look much, much better. Little parts here. I have not really fast forward this section, because I think so you can see it better what I'm actually doing and how gentle I try to do that. And that's it. That's for this part. And I let it dry for a bit. And now you have two choices. You can, if you're not so experienced, you can do another layer of varnish and then start all over again with oil paint, or you can just like use oil paint now and just be a little bit more careful not to destroy what you have created first in this front part. So now I use this kind of rust from MIG, these little brushes. You can use any kind of oil color you have and a normal brush. It's the same method, just convenience. And on the really deep recesses, on the deep scratches, on the deep impact sides, I want to have a little bit of rust. I'm still a little bit uncertain with the material you used if you go into all the War 40k fluff, because I don't think that adamantium and everything will rust, but it looks more realistic to our eye, to our understanding. And even adamantium is defined, or ceramide is defined as being gray, so you would have to go for gray chipping under the color. But gray is difficult to it does not create too much depth. So people tend, like myself, go for black or brown. Yeah, all these little things. So you see, I use this very carefully, just like little parts on some of these screws, or part of the metal especially, or the deep recesses. And I also add more interesting colors to the model. I mean, it's blue and it's orange, so working very well together. But I don't want to overdo it. So I want, just like if people look at that model, they see this little color variation, they see, ah yeah, this model looks dirty, first step, and the water and everything accumulated in certain areas, and there it creates some rust. And this is what you have to do. It would not, I mean, you can do what you want, but it would not make sense to really put the rust on a very clean blue spot here, in that case in the middle, because why is there rust? So consider where is water and grime accumulating, and then I will, under these lower parts, I will use rust color. Rust comes in different shades, of course. I just use one, which is fine for me for that model, but feel free, and I can just recommend using different colors of rust, like brighter one for fresh one, really dark reddish one for old rust, and I will just explain this in a different video. Keep in mind, although the Green Stuff World rust is acrylic medium, it's not an oil one. I have not used it for this video, although I thought I would. So please keep in mind, this is oil. This is not acrylic color. And when you have done that and you are happy with the application of your rust, you go back to white spirit. You just use your white spirit, or Terpentinersatz in German, and you use your synthetic brush, and you carefully start again to pull the rust color down. Here you have to be a little bit more careful, because this is a strong color, and you might have to dip a little bit away with a cotton swab if it's looking too heavy. Don't underestimate the intensity of oil color. You will see this in a minute. If I pull this down, it creates a huge area, a huge section of rusty parts. You can even use it to get a lighter touch for the surrounding area. So sometimes you have to definitely have to clean your brush, put in fresh new white spirit, and pull this down. And please don't, you see this here that I always go back to my pot. This is my weathering pot, but I exchange the white spirit. Don't use your colored white spirit if you want to use different oil colors. You will always create a hue. This is what I mean. So just clean your brush afterwards and also make little potions of your white spirit for one specific color. Here you can see I go over the surface. I even use a little bit of this rust color to add to other areas, and I pull this down. It feathers out, it gives a nice filter, and gives you the impression of rusty parts, especially where you have metal that's working perfectly, but also here with the deep scratches. I'm taking a little bit away. It was a little bit too much here on that part. Now it's too much standard color blue, so not enough damage. But also, sorry, this is not in frame, but also here on the scratches, I go big and I pull this down, and you see it creates a lot of rust. I take a little bit away because this is like a like a curtain of rust. I don't want to have that. So I'm carefully pulling this a little bit over the shoulder pad, and it's nice transition to the decal as well. So here as well, this I think is great. It looks strong, but I think for me this is a very deep scratch. So I think this huge rusty part is giving it a very realistic look. So I do this on different parts. I will not fast forward, so if you're fine, you can already skip to the end of this video. I will just continue this and give a few closing remarks to this weathering process. Another advice is just follow the gravity. Look at your model and just think about where would liquid, grime, rain hit the model. Of course, everywhere nearly, but and then where will it flow? And follow this path. Follow this path for your weathering. This gives a much more realistic impression. So here metal is wonderful for rust, of course. It even makes the metal more interesting, because sometimes you have so beautiful models and you have a huge metal area, and if you are like I am, not so experienced with non-metallic metal, which gives a totally different feeling to the model, it could look quite boring even if you use different shades of metal, darker, and you highlight this. It's a very subtle effect, and with this weathering with oil, you can create so many interesting aspects, even like giving it a little blue hue, like an ink. You can use oils like inks, and you can just like fade to more purple metal or to more bluish metal. You can even go for heat colored metal parts, like here, for example, on the front part of the Gatling gun, if I would have wanted to do that. So oil paints is something you should definitely try. It's very user friendly. It gives great results, and it's not difficult to use. And the best part, you can nearly in every situation repair any kind of damage to your model, because you can, with white spirit, you can take away the color. So here we go. This was the whole process. I think it took me over an hour to do that, but also here now with the preparation for that video, I think you can easily achieve that in, I would say, like 40 minutes for a Dreadnought, if you are as slow as I am. That's it. And as you can see, I hope you agree with me that it looks clean but also realistic. You have the decals, you have the scratches here in the middle, you have this grimy part here below. It looks dirty, but it's not like painted dirty, it looks like realistic dirt. And that's it. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.